Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. Hey, Elizabeth, Martha, Roberta, Mona. Okay, we have a lot of great people on today. Fantastic. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope everyone had a really great week and that you're ready for some CIC subject matter. All right, let's get started. Let's make sure this thing is working. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. We're going to talk about last week's challenge. Last week, I gave you guys a challenge. Let's see how many of you did it. Ophthalmoscopes, pharmacy services, and waste management. All right, so dust accumulation in the operating room. Last week's challenge was to go into your operating rooms and look at high surfaces for dust accumulation. What were your findings, and did any of you need to use a selfie stick to look up high on those cabinets or other surfaces in your operating rooms? Okay, so let's see if anybody did their challenge. Did you guys find any dust? Did you not get the chance to go out to the OR? Let's see. Did not do homework, crazy week. I don't have an OR, but I can look at the clinic rooms at DOH, okay? Some dust. All right, so it seems like some people did not go out and do some investigations. Let's see. We don't have an operating room, but I did look on top of the blanket warmer and hot mess. Okay, good. All right. So some of you may not be at an acute care hospital, and so you may not necessarily have the opportunity to go into your operating rooms, but you're finding other places to go look at your high surfaces, which is good. That's really good. So these are some examples of dust accumulation in the OR, right? So this first picture here is a cabinet or a cart. You know how anesthesia has their carts or their cabinets? That up there, if you see, let me see if I can use my little laser thingy. Okay, do you see this right here? This is a finger streak of like swiping your finger on it. So a pretty good layer of dust on that. And this is in an operating room. Boards. Some of your ORs are going to have boards. Look at the top side of your boards and the sides, but specifically the top for that dust accumulation. All right, the next place you need to look at are your ledges above your doors. A nice little tiny dust bunny right here. So if you didn't get the opportunity to go out to your operating rooms this week, next week is a whole nother week. So please, you need to go out, you need to look for dust within your operating rooms and other procedural areas. And make sure that this feedback's making its way to your environmental services staff, to your OR staff, so that they understand the importance of performing those cleans. Okay, and then last week we had a little bit of issues with this question, so let's see if you guys did your homework. Epidemic keratoconjunctivitis is a viral conjunctivitis caused by a group of adenoviruses. EKC is highly contagious and can be problematic in ambulatory surgery settings. Recommended measures for control of these infections include 1. Disinfection of tonometer tip in 3% hydrogen peroxide. 2. Sterilize ophthalmoscopes between uses. 3. Disinfection of the environment. And 4. Frequent hand hygiene. What is the correct answer? Okay, so I'm having a little bit more engagement in this one with the correct answer, which is great. The correct answer is C, 1, 3, and 4. So, sorry, 1, 3, and 4. So disinfection of tonometer tip in 3% hydrogen peroxide, disinfection of the environment, and frequent hand hygiene. We know from this answer choice that number 2 is incorrect. Sterilize ophthalmoscopes between uses. So what is the Spaulding criteria for ophthalmoscopes? Are they critical, semi-critical, or non-critical? Very good. Okay. All right. There we go. They're semi-critical. So in general, semi-critical equipment such as tonometers and ophthalmoscopes can be adequately disinfected by use of a mild soap and or immersion for 10 minutes or more in 3% hydrogen peroxide, 5,000 parts per, what's the M? I can't remember. Bleach solution and 70% isopropyl alcohol and or 70% ethanol. Million. Oh, thank you. Guys, it's Friday, all right? Give me a break today. It's Friday, my bad. Parts per million, 5,000 parts per million. Bleach solution and 70% isopropyl alcohol and or 70% ethanol. All right, perfect. So that was something that we struggled with last week. So here's our Spaulding criteria. We have our non-critical, our semi-critical, and critical categories based on your patient contacts. So for intact skin, it's going to be non-critical. For mucous membranes or non-intact skin, it's going to be semi-critical. And then sterile areas of the body or vascular system will be critical with your levels of disinfection. So with Spaulding classification, you get those 3 categories. But Amy has this really nice document on environmental surfaces. They've designated environmental surfaces as a 4th category. And they're basically, this document is stressing the importance of cleaning your environmental surfaces. So if you haven't had the opportunity to read it, I highly suggest you take a look at it. The link is down here at the bottom. So if you have the physical copy of the books, right? The actual paper, not the online subscription. The last time this book was published was in 2014. So you can see that these were published in 2018. They're included in the online version, but if you're reading from the 2014 version, the paper version of the text, that's not going to be in there, just as an FYI. Because I know some of you may have the books. I feel like the majority have the subscription, but in case I have people who are using the books, just know that this is not in that chapter in the 2014 version. All right, so it's just another Friday afternoon. We know that Friday afternoons are, well, first of all, they're great because we get to meet, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about a Friday afternoon, but things just tend to happen. And I don't know why, but they always do. All right. So it's 4 p.m. on Friday when you receive an email from your pharmacy manager. They report that one of the surface samples taken in your hazardous sterile compounding room grew 5 colony forming units of filamentous fungi. What are you going to do? It's 4 p.m. on a Friday. Your sterile compounding room is growing fungus. What are you going to do? Let's see if I can get some responses here. Somebody actually said cry. Roberta, she said she's just gonna cry. Okay. All right. So we have the following options: cry, get EVS to disinfect, go down and take a look at what's going on, ask who ordered it, reculture, and get more information. I like your response, Blanca. Get more information. Perfect. So that's exactly what I did when I got this call, right? You need to get more information. So one thing that I tell my colleagues And we recently, onboarded our newest infection preventionist. His name is Charles. He's fantastic. One thing I always have told him is when it comes to infection prevention, you are trusted. So you are a trusted individual in your facility. You have a huge responsibility to not only your colleagues, your hospital, your facility, but patients. So before you walk into a situation, before you walk into a meeting, um, this type of thing, you need to make sure that you have your ducks in a row. You need to make sure that you have the information that you need and that you are relatively well versed in whatever situation, problem, or issue has come up. And most importantly, you need to never lie or make up information or make it seem like you know something that you don't, because you are trusted. And so if you are unsure, you need to be very comfortable with saying, hey, I'm not exactly sure what the right answer is for this, but let me consult my director, let me get in touch with my, whoever, let me reach out to this leader, and then I'll get back to you. Give me an hour, give me 2 hours, and we'll take care of this. It's a very vulnerable position to be in, but we're not going to know everything. And so if there's something that you can take away from this lesson today is please, please, please make sure that before you're giving recommendations or that you're responding to a situation, that you take your time and get more information, right? Especially if it's an area that you're not too familiar with or that you're not too comfortable with. All right, so let's get started with this chapter, pharmacy services. So first things first, Luce is not a pharmacist, okay? Was not good at chemistry, probably never will be good at chemistry. It is what it is. I've moved on. I've let it go. It's not a big deal. But you do have pharmacists within your facilities, and let me tell you, they are a wealth of knowledge. They have so much knowledge on pharmacy, sterile compounding. If you can start building relationships with your pharmacy before an event like this happens, it's going to make a world of a difference. Having a relationship with your pharmacy will also ensure that you get notified when things like that happen, right? Because if you're siloed and you're separated and pharmacy doesn't know to reach out to you, doesn't know who you are, doesn't know you exist, it's really difficult to have a relationship where they're comfortable enough to say, hey, I got back some abnormal results. Can we sit down? Can we go through this? Can we discuss? So relationship building is super, super important. Pharmacy services. Since the 1970s, there have been multiple instances of quality problems. Examples, microbial contamination, concentration errors, or pyogenic responses due to endotoxins associated with compounding sterile and non-sterile pharmacy preparations, many of which resulted in recalls, patient injuries, and deaths. This is a really fantastic document, article. So history of sterile compounding in U.S. hospitals, learning from the tragic lessons of the past. So it says it's 14 pages, but 4 of the pages are just references, so really it's only 10. It's not too long of a read. I highly recommend that you read through this. So I found this chapter slightly overwhelming when going through it. I've read through it at this point in my life 3 times. Once in 2017 when I was preparing for my test, and then twice within the past 2 weeks. And reading through this article just help put the chapter in perspective. And some of the slides and the information in the slides are going to be coming from this article. So I highly recommend that you guys go online and read through this, because it will just really give you a good outline of the history of sterile compounding in the United States. And it's fantastic. Can't recommend it enough. So sterile compounding. Most of the history of sterile compounding involved in hospitals where customized injections, many of them intravenous injections, are necessary for patient care. Some sterile ophthalmic and inhalation preparations are compounded as well. Most of the sterile medications used in hospitals and other health systems, like home infusion, today are injections. So most of our sterile medications are injections. Most of the injections compounded in those settings are large volume IV solutions and small volume IV solutions. So some examples of those small volume injections are going to be uh, medications in vials, syringes, and secondary infusion containers. So what is sterile compounding? Pharmacists and pharmacy technicians are the professionals primarily responsible for the preparation and storage of compounded sterile and non-sterile preparations. Compounding is the process of combining drug ingredients to prepare medications that are not commercially available. Neonate, pediatric, and geriatric dosage forms or ongoing manufacturer-related drug shortages, or to alter commercially available medications to meet specific patient needs, such as dye-free or liquid formulations. So let's talk about laminar airflow, because you're going to hear a lot about laminar airflow and ISO class 5, ISO class 7, ISO class 8. Not so much in this presentation. Our pharmacy manager has agreed to be one of our guest speakers for the group, so she's actually going to go over USP 797, and she's going to cover more of that in the future. She said to give her a couple weeks, so in a couple weeks she'll be in the group discussing this with you. But laminar airflow, ISO class 5. In the early to mid 1960s, laminar airflow rooms and hoods using high efficiency particulate air filters were first implemented. The first known use of laminar airflow hoods in a hospital pharmacy occurred in 1964 in an experimental unit dose drug distribution system at the University of Arkansas Medical Center Hospital. Laminar airflow hoods, however, were expensive and required a significant commitment of floor or counter workspace. Training had to occur for workers to use them, and periodic recertification of the equipment was required. All right, so this is a really cool article that I found while trying to learn more about laminar airflow equipment. And I felt like this did a really good job at explaining it in a way that helped me understand what it does. So let's read through this. This was received for publication on October 1967, and I think it was published in January of 1968. So, laminar or minimal turbulence airflow systems have been used by aerospace industry to control particulate contamination such as dust or lint, which could affect the reliability of precision parts. In general, the units consist of a bank of ultra-high efficiency filters enclosed in a cabinet or hood. The airstream, which travels at approximately 90 feet per minute, moves essentially in parallel patterns so that the cleanliness of the air is independent of activities occurring down or cross stream. So this is a picture that was attached with the article, and the link is down here in case any of you want to read the full thing. But you can see the laminar airflow hood here, and this is back from 1968, and this is a laminar airflow hood now in 2020. So very similar, very very similar shape. They don't look much different, but yeah. So wanted to show you kind of what those look like. If you are at a facility, if you're at an acute care hospital, I highly recommend that when you're reading through these chapters, if you have the opportunity to go out and get some hands-on experience, do some observations, have some discussions, even just setting aside, hey, can I meet with you for 20 minutes just to talk about our sterile compounding room, is going to make a difference for when you take the test. Because at that point, it stops being pages it stops being words on a book, and it becomes something tangible and something real and something that you have had an actual experience with. And so I highly recommend that. If you don't work in an acute care hospital that has these rooms, find pictures, images, videos, whatever helps you to remember this information. So yeah, they look pretty similar still. All right, so let's go over contamination, intrinsic versus extrinsic. So what do we think intrinsic contamination means for sterile compounding? All right, happens at the location the compounding is done, contamination from the source at the time of manufacturing. Okay, those are some good input there. And then what is extrinsic? Extrinsic. From the environment, user, etc. Okay, contamination during compounding. Very good. All right, so intrinsic. So intrinsic is going to be during the manufacturing process or transport to the healthcare facility. And then extrinsic is going to be contamination during preparation, storage, or administration within the healthcare facility or practitioner's office. So those of you who answered, good job. You guys were like right on the nose. So let's talk about some examples of extrinsic contamination. An outbreak of E. cloacae bloodstream infections was associated with contaminated pre-filled saline syringes prepared by a home infusion company distributing to 20 states. 5 cases of hepatitis C were attributed to diversion of fentanyl by healthcare personnel infected with hep C. The diversion of fentanyl resulted in contamination of syringes, which with HCV and other healthcare personnel subsequently used these syringes to administer fentanyl to patients. Whew, that's a lot. Fungi such as C. albicans, so Candida albicans and Candida glabrata can grow in parenteral nutrition fluids. And we know that this is a little bit of a higher risk. Anytime you're using parenteral nutrition fluids, you know you're going to have an increased risk of getting some type of Candida or fungal situation to grow. The growth of most bacteria is inhibited in parenteral nutrition solutions. The addition of albumin to parenteral nutrition solutions increases the potential for bacterial and fungal growth. And the use of contaminated multi-dose ophthalmic containers has resulted in Serratia marcescens, keratitis, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, corneoscleritis. The organisms were cultured from the container, but not the solution itself. So morbidity and mortality from contaminated preparations. Now these next, I think, 3 slides are from the history of sterile compounding in U.S. hospitals. And the cool thing about this article, right? So if you go and you look at it, is that they have these summaries of, oh, hey, this is what happened. But if you look at their sources at the bottom, you can actually, if there's one that really interests you, you can go and learn more about exactly how it happened or the outbreak and how they found out about it. It's really interesting. Yeah. So in 1971, more than 100 patients nationwide died from septicemias caused by LVIs. This is, what is this one? We just went over this. Sorry. I can't not. I need to know the abbreviation. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Sorry. I was like, I can't not move on if I can't remember the abbreviation. So LVIs are large volume IV solutions. Sorry, guys. If I don't remember it, you guys probably don't remember it, or you might. So it's good for us to go back if you don't remember. Right? What did I just say at the beginning of this? If you don't know something, just before you say anything, look it up, call a friend. I'm friends with DJ Shannon, one of my colleagues out in Indiana, and I have no problem giving him a call and being like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. So, all right, back to this one. In 1971, more than 100 patients nationwide died from septicemias caused by large volume IV intravenous infusions manufactured by Abbott Laboratories, the supplier of 80% of the LVIs used in the United States at the time. The contamination was traced to a flaw in the manufacturer's glass bottle screw cap closure. So while this was not a compounding event, it significantly increased awareness of the potential consequences of contamination in IV therapy. In 1990, several infections and 2 cases of blindness resulted from contaminated eye drops prepared in a community pharmacy. In 1998, 11 children received a drug or drugs from hospital contaminated syringes. In 2004, 36 infections occurred from injections made in a compounding pharmacy. So we can see that it's still going on, right? So 1971, we're having issues. 1990s, 1998, still having issues. 2004. 2011, 69 infections were linked to a drug repackaged by a compounding pharmacy. 2011, 9 deaths resulted from contaminated parenteral nutrition preparations made by a compounding pharmacy. And then in 2012, 33 fungal eye infections, some with loss of vision, resulted from contaminated preparations made by a compounding pharmacy. So we've been, compounding medications for a very long time. And as time has passed by, regulations have changed and guidelines have improved. And currently, USP 797, it was supposed to pass last December, but it has not gone into effect yet. Hopefully at some point in 2021, since I'm not sure if it's going to happen this year or not. But this document has a lot more recommendations and guidelines on what you need to do to ensure that you are compounding medication safely. Regardless of all of these things and all of these changes, we're still having issues and patients are still being harmed. So this continues to be an issue, and this is something that you need to pay attention to in your facilities. In 2012, there was a massive multi-state outbreak related to compounding. So this is from December 12th, 2012. FDA and CDC have identified bacterial and/or fungal contamination in unopened vials of beclomethasone, cardioplegia, and triamcinolone, okay, that's a long one, cinolone solutions distributed and recalled from NECC, which is the New England Compounding Center in Boston. It was Massachusetts, not Boston. Framingham, Massachusetts. These included bacteria known as bacillus and fungal species, including Aspergillus tubengensis, Aspergillus fumigatus, Cladosporidium species, and Penicillium species. Although rare, some of the identified bacillus species can be human pathogens. Some of the fungal organisms identified, particularly Aspergillus fumigatus, are known to cause disease in humans. It is not known how product contamination with these organisms could affect patients clinically. So, CDC and FDA laboratory confirmed organisms from product samples. And let's look at what type of impact that had, because it was large. So we're talking about a total case count as of October of 2015 of 753 affected individuals due to these issues with sterile compounding. Issues with sterile compounding can have deadly consequences for patients. This is an area of your facility that you need to make sure that you're paying attention to. So this is the distribution of the states that were affected, right? 25 cases in Florida, 264 cases, 93, 56, 18, 153. Overall, 753 cases total. Meningitis, 234. A paraspinal infection with meningitis, because meningitis alone was not enough, 152. Stroke without lumbar puncture, 7. Paraspinal infection, 325. Peripheral joint infections, 33. A paraspinal infection and a peripheral joint infection, 2. And 64 deaths, all related to compounding issues from one place. I mean, that is just massive. So I would really love to have someone come talk about this investigation on the group, and I've actually reached out to see if that's something that we can make happen. So I will keep you all posted, but it's a big deal. So one of the things that I love about this study group is that, yes, we're covering this information for this test, right? You want to get certified, you want to become certified in infection prevention and control, but why? Why do you want to do it? Do you want to do it just so that you can have 3 letters after your name? What is the reason? I like to believe that all of you are spending Fridays with me because you believe in the job that you have and that you want to protect people, that you want to save lives, and that you want to be the absolutely best epidemiologist or infection preventionist that you can be. And it goes beyond the pages. We're not just reading information. What we're learning is helping us prevent this from happening in our facilities and in our communities. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. So what have we learned? Microbial contamination can occur in any practice setting and can lead to morbidity and mortality. Second, contamination can occur with various types of preparations from IV to ophthalmic and inhalation, for example. Third, over the past 2 decades, there have been numerous problems from contaminated preparations made in compounding pharmacies. So, pharmacy responsibilities. Let me tell you what, I don't have a favorite department, but if I did, pharmacy would be my top 3 because they are some of the just most laid back, kindest people in my facility. They're so welcoming. They're so open to answering questions. When you don't know something related to medications, hey, I'm not sure if this antibiotic is okay. Do you think that there's any medication that we need to uh, get rid of or that isn't necessary? I'm trying to get this line pulled. You can reach out to them, and they're fantastic people. We had a guest speaker. Her name is Jillian Hayes. She was our antimicrobial stewardship pharmacist here, but she actually transferred to one of our larger um, hospitals, and so I miss her very much, but I can still call her. I can still call her and ask her questions. Make sure you work on these relationships in your facilities. They're really important. So some pharmacy responsibilities. Pharmacy is primarily responsible for the handling, preparation, and storage of compounded sterile and non-sterile preparations. Pharmacy needs to actively participate in the aseptic training of staff that will prepare compounded sterile and non-sterile preparations. And Katie will talk a bit more about what that training is like and the type of tests that staff need to pass in order to be able to do compounding of sterile compounding. So pharmacy management personnel should participate in identifying staff who would benefit from education and proficiency evaluation of their aseptic technique and compounding procedures and calculations, and when necessary, to coordinate any medication recalls and traceability to the patients who have received specific products associated with medication errors, endemics, and epidemics. So we've talked a lot about the things that can go wrong, right? Paraspinal abscesses, fungal contamination, TPN growing candida. We've talked about it all. So what are some methods for preventing contamination of compounded sterile preparations? So a primary engineering control device, for example, a laminar-airflow workbench or a biological safety cabinet capable of maintaining International Organization for Standardization or ISO Class 5 air cleanliness conditions. So ISO class 5 is going to be no greater than 100 particles per cubic foot or 3,520 particles per cubic meter. Now, like I said, you have different ISO classes. You have ISO class 5, ISO class 7, ISO class 8, and Katie will cover those later on. I don't know if she'll present this year, maybe in January, depending on her schedule, but you can always read about it in the chapter. To get a better understanding. So the CDC recommends that all parenteral fluids be prepared in the pharmacy using an ISO class 5 primary engineering control. Now, hazardous drug preparation. When preparing hazardous drugs for use in oncology patients in a clinical or outpatient setting, use of a biological safety cabinet or compounding aseptic containment isolator is required. So when you read the word compounding aseptic containment isolator, you may not be exactly sure of what that thing is, and I'm showing you right here, that's what that thing is right there. This picture right here is a CACI, is a compounding aseptic containment isolator with its antechamber and all of its good stuff. I don't know all of the intricacies of this machine. Katie has walked me through it, and bless her heart, she knows so much. So I'm not going to do the disservice of trying to walk you through this mammoth, but she will at some point. So just know that this is what it looks like, and you need one of these if you're going to be doing any type of hazardous drug preparation. So some risk categories. Compound sterile preparations are classified by 5 general categories based on risk of microbial contamination. You have your immediate use, which means that it's prepared outside of an ISO 5 device, which are intended to meet immediately use, like you get them ready and then you're going to use them. That's what the word immediate means, in case any of us forgot. Low risk level with 12-hour beyond use dating. So prepared in an ISO class 5 air cleanliness conditions in an unclassified segregated compounding area with ambient air. So if your room is not fully certified, you're able to do this low risk level with 12-hour beyond use dating until you obtain your full certification. Your low risk level is when your sterile preparations are done in an ISO class 5 air cleanliness conditions located within an ISO class 7 or 8 buffer areas. And basically, the way the classifications work is there's specific parameters that need to be met within each ISO class. So I'm not going to go through all of it because it's not terrible. It's not terrible at all, but it's very specific, and I want for a true expert to do it. But just know that these classes are associated with different parameters that need to be met within each area. Medium risk level, these are prepared under batch conditions, so multiple individual doses for individual patients using more complex aseptic manipulations, and are prepared in ISO class 5 air cleanliness conditions in an ISO class 7 or 8 area. And then high risk level, these are prepared from non-sterile ingredients or non-sterile devices or prepared in air quality less than ISO class 5 air cleanliness. So those are your different risk categories when it comes to your compounding sterile preparations. All right, so USP 797. This thing is gigantic. So I don't think I can upload the USP 797 because if you follow the instructions, they tell you that you need to download each copy individually. But in the next slide, I tell you how to do that. So this document, which I actually have right in front of me, is a total of 43 pages. It's just a little bit of light reading for a Sunday evening. So I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and, download the USP 797 if you have not already done that. So the objective of USP 797 is to describe conditions and practices that prevent harm, including death, to patients that could result from 1, microbial contamination, 2, excessive bacterial endotoxins, 3, variability in the intended strength of the correct ingredients that exceed either monograph limits for official articles or 10% for non-official articles. 4, unintended chemical and physical contaminants. And then 5, ingredients of inappropriate quality in compounded sterile preparations. Drug manufacturers are regulated under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which requires compliance with USP standards. Now, how do you get a copy of USP standards so that just in case you get that call at 5 p.m. on a Friday, you know where to find it and where to go? You're going to click on this link and then you're going to hit the free download button. That's going to pull up a page that's going to ask you what your name is, what facility you work for, and it's going to look like it's a scam. It's not a scam. You just have to put in all your information and then you'll get it sent directly to your email where you'll be able to download it and have a copy of it, save it on your computer. But those are the instructions, right? Because it says individual use only, meaning my copy's just for me. I think that they want to keep track of who all downloads it. So that's why I'm not going to upload it to our Google Drive, just because I get nervous about these kind of things. So anyway, so question 1, let's do some questions. It's just Friday, Fridays not my best days. So question 1, while the IP performs environmental rounds in the pharmacy, she observes a pharmacy technician using poor technique while working under the laminar airflow hood. She reviews the pharmacy's policies for the frequency of training on aseptic technique for employees preparing sterile solutions. Which of the following is the best recommended frequency of infection prevention and control training for unlicensed employees who prepare sterile solutions? A is monthly until the employee can demonstrate proficiency by return demonstration. B, every 6 months for 1 year after the date of hire. C, annually on employee's anniversary date of hire with other training programs. Or D, annually and whenever unacceptable technique is observed. Okay, so we have a couple of different answers here. Some A's, but a lot of D's. Okay, good. So the correct answer is D, annually and whenever unacceptable technique is observed. It's my understanding from conversations that I've had with Katie, and I can't recall because I don't have it highlighted in my thing, but that USP 797 is actually recommending to do your education and your fingertip testing, et cetera, every 6 months once it comes into effect. But right now, with the current guidelines, it's annually. So I don't know how with the times the CIC test will be when it comes to this. I don't know if they'll update it once USP 797 comes out. But yeah, for now, annually and whenever unacceptable technique is observed. All right. Question 2. While rounding in an ambulatory care center, an IP discovers that healthcare personnel have been using single-dose vials of lidocaine for multiple patients. She informs the clinic manager that the practice must end immediately. Which of the following statements about single-dose vials should the IP include in her explanation to the clinic manager? 1. Single-dose vials lack antimicrobial preservatives. 2. Inappropriate use of single-dose vials can lead to contamination. 3. A needleless access device must be applied when reusing a single-dose vial. And all medications from a single-dose vial must be prepared in a pharmacy. All right, let's see. So the correct answer is 1 and 2. And I had a lot of A's. And I had just a couple B's sprinkled in, but the majority of answers were A's. Single-dose vials lack antimicrobial preservatives, and 2, inappropriate use of single-dose vials can lead to contamination. That is correct. Those 2 are things that you should include. So our rationale, the CDC's guidelines call for medications labeled as single dose or single use to be used for only one patient. This practice protects patients from life-threatening infections that occur when medications get contaminated from unsafe use. Vials labeled by the manufacturer single dose or single use should only be used for a single patient. These medications typically lack antimicrobial preservatives and can become contaminated and serve as a source of infection when they are used inappropriately. Let me give you a tip. A part of our role um, includes confronting people. And I don't mean that in like an aggressive way, like, oh, we have to, start fights and, put our hairs up in ponytails or anything. But a part of our role is having difficult conversations. And when you see something that could potentially harm a patient, you have to speak up. And it doesn't matter if it's a surgeon or if it's an anesthesiologist. that is telling you that you can use that propofol vial for multiple patients, even though it says single use on it. You need to speak up and you need to tell that person that they need to throw it away. So, once again, the information that we're learning, right, is for this test to ensure that we can all get certified, but it goes beyond paper. So you need to keep these lessons in your head for when you're rounding, or if you're an epidemiologist, for when you're visiting facilities and you're observing people's behaviors. Because we have recommendations and we have guidelines of ways that people need to handle medication safely, but if they are not happening, then as an IP or as an epi, whether you're a surveyor, whatever it is, you have to speak up, okay? So if it says single use, single dose, it's single use or single dose, right? It doesn't matter if they tell you, oh, well, I use, I disinfect every time I use alcohol, I use a brand new needle. What is your concern? What is your infection prevention concern if I'm using all of the recommended practices? Let me tell you what, you take a deep breath and you just stand your ground and you stand up for the patient. So question 3, an outbreak of hepatitis C has occurred in the endoscopy clinic. Single-dose vials of medication are used in the clinic, and observation of practice shows that the rubber stopper of each vial is wiped with alcohol before access. Medication is drawn up with a needle and syringe and administered to the patient. If an added dose is needed, the needle is replaced on the syringe and more medication is drawn up from the vial. If medication remains in the vial, then it is stored at the recommended temperature for use on another patient. Healthcare personnel in the clinic had a 40% overall compliance with recommended hand hygiene practices. Which practice is the most likely cause of the outbreak? A, use of a single-dose medication vial for more than one patient. B, poor hand hygiene practices. C, contamination of medication through the rubber stopper. Or D, inadequate cleaning and disinfection of endoscopes. Okay, very good. So a lot of you are saying that it's A, which is correct. You should have already, without even thinking about it, been able to get rid of inadequate cleaning and disinfection of endoscopes. Irrelevant, right? Has nothing really to do with the question. Yeah, we're in an endoscopy clinic, but we're talking about single dose vials. So you would have been left at that point with A, B, and C. The question is telling you that the medication is drawn up with a needle and a syringe and administered to the patient. If they need to get another dose, the needle is replaced on the syringe and more medication is drawn up from the vial. If medication remains in the vial, then it is stored at the recommended temperature for use on another patient. This is a single dose vial. It is single dose. It is for one patient. Okay? So use of a single dose medication vial for more than one patient is the cause. And poor hand hygiene practices, yeah, that doesn't help either. And contamination of medication through the rubber stopper, you're already, first of all, changing the needle, which you're not supposed to do, but most importantly, sharing the medication between patients. So this is a prioritization question. I cannot talk today. My bad. It's because it's late and it's Friday. But you need to prioritize. What is the issue here? And the issue is that you are using your single dose medication for multiple people. And if ACA were to find out, you're going to have problems. So I already went through the question. We're not going to read the rationale. Question 4. The Director of Infection Prevention and Control has been asked to lead a team in the development of an antimicrobial stewardship program at an organization. Core members should include 1. Pharmacist, 2. Risk manager, 3, respiratory therapist. 4, an infectious disease physician. This one should be quickly split. I'm gonna give you like 5 more seconds. Okay, very good. Yes, 1 and 4. Pharmacist, super important. Miss you, Jillian. She was the greatest. She's off to greener pastures, larger hospital. I'm okay, don't worry about me, guys. And then an infectious disease physician. So that is who we need. We need our pharmacist and we need our infectious disease physician. They are critical. They are so critical to an antimicrobial stewardship program. And they should be people that you're close to in your facility if you're an infection preventionist. And by close, I just mean that you can call, that you can text, that you can say, hey, I need a quick consult on this situation. There should be definitely a friendship there, or a professional working friendship. All right, question 5. The USP recommends that multi-dose vials be disposed of A, 14 days after opening, B, 30 days after opening, C, 28 days after opening, or D, when all the medication has been used. This is a black and white question. All right, this is why I call these questions. They're black and white. Either you know them or you don't. You read this question and either you know the answer or you don't. So when you're taking the test and you get something like this, you either immediately know what the correct answer is or you're going to give it your best guess and move on. Don't waste time on things when it comes down to specific, like when they give you specific temperatures, specific days. Those are your black and white questions, which you either know them or you don't. And if you don't know them, use your best guess and then keep it moving. Do not spend time on these questions on the test because they'll eat up your time and then you won't be able to finish. So the correct answer is 20 days. A multi-dose vial is a vial of liquid medication intended for parenteral administration that contains more than 1 dose of medication. Multi-dose vials are labeled as such by the manufacturer and typically contain an antimicrobial preservative to help prevent the growth of bacteria. The preservative has no effect on viruses and does not protect against contamination when healthcare personnel fail to follow safe injection practices. USP Standard 797 requires that a multi-dose vial be discarded within 28 days after its first opening in accordance with USP Chapter 51, unless specified by the manufacturer. All right. Question 6. Numerous outbreaks of infections have been attributed to unsafe injection practices. The IP designs an educational program to review safe injection practices with all nursing staff. These practices include 1. Use of single-dose vials whenever possible and avoid using multi-dose vials. 2. Discard saline bags used for intravenous flushes for multiple patients after 1 hour. 3. Enter medication vials with a new needle and syringe, even on the same patient. And 4. Use needles and syringes for only one patient. Okay, perfect. Almost everybody put B. There were some other answers in there, but the majority of the group put B. 1, 3, and 4. Saline bags used for intravenous flushes for multiple patients? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You should not be using your IV bags for multiple patients. No. No. All right. Never administer medications from the same syringe to more than one patient, even if the needle is changed. Never. Capital. Never. It should be in all caps, bolded, and highlighted. Never administer medications from the same syringe to more than one patient, even if the needle is changed. Do not enter a vial with a used syringe or needle, even if it's the same patient. Medications packaged as single-use vials must never be used for more than one patient. Medications packaged as multi-use vials should be assigned to a single patient whenever possible. Bags or bottles of IV solution must not be used as a common source of supply for more than one patient. And absolute adherence to proper infection control practices must be maintained during the preparation and administration of injected medications. Question 7. When using a medication vial that is intended to be discarded after a single procedure, it is acceptable to reuse the same syringe that was just used to access that vial and give that patient medication if the needle is replaced with a new needle, B, the medication vial is a single-use vial, C, the vial is only going to be used for that patient, or D, it is not acceptable to reuse the syringe. Okay, guys. So the majority of you put the right answer, D. But some of you did not choose the correct one. You have a, okay. All right. You have a single dose vial. That's supposed to be a D, not a P. You have a single dose vial. What they're saying is that it is acceptable to reuse the same syringe that was just used to access that vial and give that patient medication. So you're going to use your same syringe. It's supposed to be like a little something here and a little. I'm not an artist, okay? I'm trying my best here, so don't judge me. But it's saying you're going to use that same syringe to access that medication again for that same patient. That is not, it's not acceptable. You need to go back to the rationale that we just looked at. All right. Never administer medications from the same syringe to more than one patient, even if the needle is changed. Do not enter a vial with a used syringe or needle. So do not enter a vial with a used syringe or needle. If you need to access that vial again for that patient, you need to grab a whole new set. It's the only one campaign. Okay. Question 8. Oh, sorry. It is not acceptable to reuse the syringe. Question 8. A patient is receiving eye drops to treat conjunctivitis. The drops are only available in a multi-dose vial. Which of the following is or are acceptable practices for use of this medication? 1. This vial of medication may not be used on multiple patients. 2. This vial of medication may be used on multiple patients if it has not come into contact with tears or the conjunctiva. 3. This vial of medication may be used on multiple patients if it is used within 28 days of being opened. Or 4. This vial of medication should be stored away from the patient care area. Oh, sorry, I was muted myself accidentally. I said, um, you can't use this for more than that person, for another person, because you're treating an infectious disease. You're treating a potential infection. You cannot share it with other people. Multi-dose eye drops or creams are not acceptable for reuse on other patients if they have been used on a patient with an infectious disease of the eye. And then the last question, the IP has implemented a new educational program focusing on teaching safe injection practices to the staff nurses. Several months after the program is initiated, the IP is notified of a potential outbreak issue. A nurse used a medication vial for more than one patient. Which of the following quality tools would be most useful to investigate this incident? A, a value stream mapping, B, a root cause analysis, C, a SWOT analysis, or D, a failure mode effect analysis. What are we gonna use? Okay, well, we're at the end of the hour here. You would use a root cause analysis. The root cause analysis process takes a retrospective look at adverse outcomes and determines what happened, why it happened, and what an organization can do to prevent the situation from recurring. The root cause analysis process avoids individual blame, considers human factors engineering, and analyzes redesign for a safer system. A thorough root cause analysis determines 1, human and other factors, 2, the process or system involved, 3, underlying causes and effects of the process, and 4, the risks and potential contributions to failure or adverse results. Okay, so we had a couple questions left regarding waste management, but we don't have enough time. It's the end of our hour together today. Does anybody have any last minute questions before I let you guys go? I give you a few seconds in case there's something you want to ask. Okay, so how do we get the recording from week 9? I don't think I've sent it out, so I'll go ahead and send it out. Thank you, Luce. You're welcome. Do you have any sections on renovation and reconstruction? I don't think that I have to go back. I don't know if I thoroughly cover construction and renovation within my sessions. Could you include me on the email? Yes. All right. Let's see. How often to sterilize automated pipettes in lab? I'm not sure. I would have to look at that one. All right. Excellent job, and your podcast with Patty was excellent. Oh, thanks, Sherilyn. Appreciate it. Yes, I'm sorry, guys. I know I've been behind in sending emails. It's been so busy. I actually had to stay up pretty late making sure I could have this PowerPoint done for you guys. So it's been like a hot mess express of just busyness all the time. But thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys listening in. Please make sure you're reading, doing your chapter readings, doing questions, and sign up for your test as soon as possible. All right? Because you guys got this. Okay, have a good weekend. Everybody, I'll see you next weekend. I mean, not next weekend, next Friday. I'm done. Goodbye.